Local markets are starting to reopen in Kashmir after a period of serious escalation between nuclear-armed neighbors India and Pakistan. Residents there say explosions have died down on both sides of the border. The period of relative calm comes after both countries traded accusations of ceasefire violations. On Saturday, the countries agreed to a U.S.-brokered truce agreement. The recent clashes marked the worst set of fighting between the two in nearly 3 decades, with missiles and drones being fired at each other's military installations and dozens of people being killed. Joining us from Washington, Kamran, good to see you. Thank you for making time for us.
Thanks for having me, Natasha.
Kamran, the audio doesn't sound great, but let's give it a shot. Let me begin by asking you, what is going on with the ceasefire? Because just moments after we reported, after the president posted on social media, Donald Trump posted on social media that there is a ceasefire, the two countries have agreed, immediately we started hearing reports of attacks across each side of the border. What are you making of where things stand right now?
So look, I think violations of ceasefires are to be expected in the early hours or in the early days. There is also supposed to be a meeting between the Director Generals of military operations on both sides tomorrow, at least as per the media reports. So they still have to sort of hammer out that truce. So what we do have is a cessation of hostilities, but we aren't just yet there in terms of an actual formal ceasefire. Yes, the President of the United States and his administration initiated that process, and the heavy blows that the two sides were giving each other, they came to a halt. But small arms fire and those kind of ceasefire violations, given the fragility of the peace, if you will, or the calm, this is something to be expected.
Let me talk to you about the United States and this seeming about face, because it was just on Friday on Fox News that Vice President J.D. Vance came on and said, look, the Pakistan-India-Kashmir issue, it's not our problem. We're not getting involved. And lo and behold, the next day, the president issues a statement on social media saying, we've been working throughout the night to get peace brokered. And then Marco Rubio says the same thing. J.D. Vance says, yes, in fact, we have been. Why is the U.S. getting involved?
So I think that the vice president, in his earlier comment to Fox News, probably didn't articulate himself in greater detail. What I think is trying to happen this administration is trying to do is to say, look, we're not the previous administrations, Republican or Democrat, where we would own an issue and make it our own issue, and then we would sort of be in the driver's seat and mediate between India and Pakistan. We'll play a minimalist, if you will, mediator role, and that's what we ideally want to do. Now, that's the ideal position of this administration. But at some point, when the Indians retaliated to the Pakistani downing of the aircraft, and they lobbed missiles and at Pakistani air bases, that was a serious escalation. And I suspect that the intelligence community brought it to the attention of National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, because he's dual-hatted. And it sort of created a panic that this is getting serious and we need to kick into higher gear. And that's where you have the vice president, the national security advisor coming out and saying, working the phones. And then we had that statement or the social media post from the president.
There's this ongoing looming international issue of whether or not Pakistan is soft on or harbors or even sponsors terrorist activity. Just within Operation Sindoor, which was carried out by the Indian military this week, they said they've hit targets for Lashkar-e-Taiba, the resistance front, which initially took responsibility for the Kashmir attack in April, Hezbollah Mujahideen in Sialkot, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, these massive terror networks with their madrasas and their seminaries. How are they still permitted to operate? Because the argument from India is Pakistan is sponsoring them. Pakistan says they're non-state agents.
So I think there's a lot of nuance there. I think what has happened is the militancy aspect of these entities or the terrorism aspect of these entities has gone underground. In other words, you won't find them openly operating in madrasas and other facilities right in the middle of a city like Sialkot or Bahawalpur or Muridke, which is near Lahore. Those are where sort of the broader ecosystem of these groups exist. Leadership, associates, families. I mean, you have to bear in mind that these aren't your sort of classic terrorist organizations. They've grown from that status, and they have acquired, they've become social phenomenon. I mean, they have economic and financial interests as well. They have to, because otherwise, how can you be a terrorist organization? In other words, there's a degree of autonomy from the Pakistani state. And so I think that there is that nuance that needs to be kept in mind. Now, I haven't seen any evidence that the actual training facilities or the actual places where attacks like the Pahalgam attack are planned and executed and plotted, those were attacked. I mean, we may find more evidence in the days to come, but so far what we've seen is that broader ecosystem being hit.
Okay, let me ask you about tomorrow. There are meant to be talks tomorrow between senior officials from the two governments, but so much remains unclear about the involvement of whether it's the Americans, the Saudis, the Turks. Who else is going to be involved? What do you imagine is going to take place tomorrow?
I think this isn't about tomorrow, Natasha. I think that this isn't going to be the new normal. I think both countries have kind of shut the door hard on the past, the standard operating procedure of their 80-year-old rivalry, where occasionally they come to blows and then go back, and there are terrorist attacks in India. I think what we now are looking at is the possibility of frequent clashes, not just limited to the line of control in Kashmir, but along the entire international boundary, because this is a new normal. Until now, the fear was that, oh my God, if these countries come to a blow, it could escalate to the nuclear realm. Mm-hmm. I think what has happened now is that both sides have proven that they can, target each other in a much more substantive way than before because of technology, and still remain well below the nuclear threshold. So this is a new age, and I think that what we're going to see is new protocols, a new sort of playbook. The old playbook either has to be discarded or updated significantly on both sides in how they deal with each other. So this is going to be a long-term issue, not something about tomorrow or the next few weeks or months.
Kamran, sorry for interrupting. Let me just jump in. Are you suggesting then that the goal is going to be not one of peace and diplomacy, but one for, this is how we're now going to engage in warfare with the same set of rules?
I think, look, subjectively, both sides don't want escalations. Mm-hmm. But then things happen where one side is forced to take an action, and then when that action takes place, the other side responds and retaliates. And this is because of the 2016 decision by the current government in India, the one led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, to sort of go beyond the old doctrine and tear that one up and say, you know what, if we get hit, we're going to cross the border and we're going to strike. In 2016, you had a very small special forces raid, very limited, which they called a surgical strike. Then that set the precedent for 2019, where you had fixed-wing aircraft doing strikes inside Pakistan proper, leading to Pakistan retaliating, a dogfight, Indian airplane being shot down, pilot captured, and then returned. So now in 2025, 6 years later, the expectation within the public in India has risen. And so now so what are you going to do about it this time? That didn't work. That didn't stop terrorist attacks from happening. So what are you going to do? So I think there's that logic of escalation that takes a life of its own.
Okay. Kamran Bokhari, always great to get your insights. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.